Hello everyone. This video is being provided by the American Student Achievement Institute for schools participating in ASA's Redesigning School Counseling Initiative. The purpose of this video is to discuss school counseling data collection and specifically the self-studies. So there are 5 different types of self-studies that you'll be completing. Each of them goes very quickly. And we'll take this video to walk through each of them. So first question is, how will this data be used? In the RSC process, we know that in November, December, January, we're working on data collection. And this data will be used at 2 different council meetings. In February, the council will discuss the achievement data self-study as it's looking and developing its goals. And then in March, the council will look at the other self-studies as they are defining the root causes for why students aren't making the choices that you want them to make so that you can reach those goals. So in the goal step, the question that you'll be asking your council is, what choices do our students need to make in order for our school to reach the academic goals in our school improvement plan? So before your council can have that discussion about student choices, they're going to need to know what are those academic goals in the school improvement plan. And then in the second discussion about root causes, the question you'll ask your council is, why aren't more students making our targeted choices? Or why aren't we reaching our goals? So in the data that you're looking at in the self-studies will help the council to decide if there's a lack of student opportunities or there's a lack of resources that you need to deliver your program. So again, your council will be looking at this self-study data during the root cause step. And then the school demographics self-study will use different parts of that in different ways. For ASA, we'll use that to help generate a student counselor ratio. And then for ASCA, for the RAMP award, ASCA will want to look down the road when we get to activities. They'll want to see if there are some activities that are targeting groups of students that may be having guidance gaps. And so we need to know what student populations, what the student demographics are in your building. And then there's also an ASCA thing that they do that requires you to look at a counselor agreement. And some of those questions have to do with practices within your department. So we've added those into the school demographics part as well. Okay, and that said, then let's walk through the online system. Okay, so I've gone to the process page, and again, that you get there by going to the left navigation bar, click on process, and then just make sure that the foundations tab is highlighted. Then I'm going to scroll down to collect data, and you can see that we are in the second part of this now, which is watch the self-studies video, which is what you're doing right now, and then complete these 5 things. So I'm going to look at first, complete the school demographics. I open up that section. Some of this information we've pulled from the Indiana Department of Education, so that's already in here. And then other parts you'll just enter in. So a little bit about the school, your student groups, professional collaboration and responsibilities. This is from ASCA. School counselor availability. And ASCA also asks not only about when the school counseling office is open, but when the career center is open. So if you don't have a career center, just write that in here. Then the role and responsibilities of other staff and volunteers. So do you have a school counseling department assistant? If you don't have one, just indicate that. If you do, then we want to know what their role and responsibilities are. Is there an attendance clerk, data manager, career and college center assistant? So, and then how do you use volunteers? So, okay, so that's that. Pretty quick to fill out. Take you just a few minutes and then hit save. Okay, I'm going to go back to the process page. In the next section, I'm looking at the student achievement goal. This is already in your school improvement plan. So to enter this, you're just going to hit the upload file button, and that will give you the opportunity to choose a file from your computer and then upload it. So we don't want to see your entire school improvement plan, but if your academic goals are just like written on 2 pages in your plan, what you could do is just make a PDF of those 2 pages, scan those 2 pages, and then just upload those to us. Please make sure that they are academic goals and not student choice goals. So attendance would not be an academic goal. That's something that students in elementary schools, their parents choose that they do. Discipline referrals would not be an academic goal. So for your school's academic goals, we're really looking for math goals, language arts goals, world languages goals, career and tech ed goals. We're really looking for something that's academic in nature in your school improvement plan. For some schools, depending on how well written your school improvement plan is, those may be hard to find. But just kind of read through and look for the academic targets that are in your school improvement plan. Okay, another resource we've given you on this one is, you'll see here was the upload button. Here's a tool that we've given you. So this is just a Word document, and what you can do with this, if you want to, is just once you find those academic goals, if you want a really kind of a clear way to present them to us and to your council, you could just write in, these are our goals for this year. Here's the student group. That might be all students. It might be 3rd graders. It might be Hispanic students. Here's the benchmark, pass I-STEP, pass 2 semesters of Algebra 1, read at grade level, whatever it is that you have the benchmark for those students. And then your baseline data, the data, that baseline data, and then the percentage of students in the student group who met that benchmark. And then your target data, what your goal is. And again, the date that you're going to collect your target data, and then the percentage of the students in the student group who you have a goal that will reach the benchmark by that date. So, okay, so that's just kind of we think of kind of an easy way to present your student achievement goals. So, okay. So that is the student achievement goals. I'm going to go down to the elements of model school counseling programs. This is a self-study that we developed after studying a ton of school counseling programs that are considered model. And you'll also find that all of the elements that are in this, we will, in one way or another, address this year through RSC. So please don't be surprised if you don't have a lot of these elements in place right now. If you had them all in place, there probably would be no need to even do RSC. So, okay, so here's how that works. I'm going to go to the Enter column, and here are different elements. So the first one is organizational structure, and here's what the kind of the best practice is. And then you would just check off, do we exceed expectations? Is this satisfactory? Is it not satisfactory? Is it totally missing, or does it not apply to us? So there's organizational structure. Here's program foundations. Here's professionalism, counselor attributes, data collection review, program resources, program goals, root causes, student guidance, student counseling, advocacy, program management, and student opportunities. So in student opportunities, you can see that this refers to another self-study that we'll talk about in a second. So this goes pretty quick. It needs to be filled out by someone who's knowledgeable about your school counseling program. And you're just, for each one, just read the statement and just click off if you exceed or if you're satisfactory, not satisfactory, or missing, or not applicable. So, okay, so that's that self-study. The next one is the student opportunity self-study. Click on that entry. And in this one, we're just wanting to know what opportunities do your students have, both in your school and in the community. So, for example, on the first one, it says, take a learning styles assessment. Let's say that you're in elementary school and you give every single one of your fifth graders a learning styles assessment. So 100% of the kids are getting it, and it's in the school. Next one, let's say you're a high school, and actually the school I'm working with demo is a 7-12 school. So enroll in Algebra 1. Let's say that all the students have an opportunity to enroll in Algebra 1. Then enroll in an AP course. Let's say that your school has a policy that you have to get an A in some other class to be eligible to enroll in an AP course. So it wouldn't be 100% because it's just the kids who have, who got A's. Or maybe you have open enrollment in your AP classes, but you only have one section of a certain AP class, AP Calc, and you have 60 students that want to take AP Calc, but you only have one section, so you have to turn a lot away. So in that case, it may not be 100%. It may just be 100%. It may just be 20%. Same thing if you have prerequisites on some of these upper level classes, it wouldn't be 100% of the kids that have that opportunity. Participate in a service activity. Maybe your school provides that, but it's only for students who are taking a certain class. So it's not, 100%, it's only the 15% that are enrolled in that class. So, and then for some of these too, like take a career interest inventory, it may be that the Boy Scouts in your community provide that as part of their career merit badge. So you could check that it's happening somewhere else. It's not happening in the school, but we know that 2% of our kids get that in Scouts. Another column you could check is that this opportunity is not provided or not sure. So these opportunities are grade level specific, and again, they're based on a study of best practices in model schools that have sound school counseling programs. And so you can just kind of go through and check off the ones that you provide. And again, if you don't provide them all, not to worry. When we get to the goals section, we'll look at the goals, and then when we get to root causes, we'll see, okay, is maybe the reason the kids aren't making this decision because we're not giving them the opportunity to. And if that's the case, then you can choose to make some changes in your program at that point. So, okay, so that's student opportunities. And then the last one is program resources self-study. This is a form you're going to upload to us. So I'll show you the form. And it looks like this. So what we're wanting to know is what's your annual budget for school counseling, excluding salaries and benefits. What students do you have? How many students do you have? And then you'll calculate the per pupil expenditure for school counseling. If you're in a school that doesn't provide a budget for counselors, then your per pupil expenditure would be zero. We know in a lot of cases there is no budget. It's just that when a counselor wants some money, they just go to their principal and say, can I have some money? However, we think it's one of the best practices. We think that school counseling programs should have a budget, just like the math department or the English department has a budget, so that you can decide how to spend that money and know how much money will be allocated to you before you start spending. So, okay, so that's about finances. Human resources, same thing here. The desired time use, leave that blank right now for your department. And then the actual, you'll leave blank also right now because you don't have your time use data yet. During your council meeting, when we get to root causes, you'll fill this in right before that council meeting. So leave this blank for right now. Number of licensed school counselors, we're going to calculate that as an adjusted FTE, and here's instructions for how to do that. What we want to be very clear is that if you have a full-time counselor, but then that counselor is being used half the time as a junior principal or as an administrative assistant for the principal, and they're doing lots of non-program tasks, we want it to be very clear that you don't have a full-time counselor, you have a half-time counselor. So, so we'll express that as your adjusted FTE, and this will be for all the counselors in your building. So if you have 2 counselors and one of them spends half the time doing non-program tasks, your adjusted FTE for the department would be 1.5. So these instructions explain how to do that. Number of students, student-counselor ratio. This time we're going to do the ratio by adjusted FTE. So yeah, so the instructions are there for how to do that. School support resources. You're just writing down what resources are available to you and what counseling resources are available to your department. Community supports resources, you know, who helps you deliver your school counseling program from the community. Space resources, technology resources, materials, supplies, professional development resources. In this section, you would write down each of your counselors' names and then just check off the state or national memberships that counselors have and the state or national conferences that counselors go to. And then there's a section over here for other, if there's other things that your counselors do. Up at the top, we want to know, you know, how much funding is allocated for professional development as well. And again, I am sometimes very surprised how few school counselors are able to do professional development, and also by how many schools provide zero funding, but then their counselors are paying out of pocket to go to these conferences. So again, when we talk with your council later about your resources, we just want to get that out on the table. And this may be a case where one of your council members says, "Oh my gosh, you want to go, become more current in your field by participating in professional development, but the school can't pay for it. You know, our business can sponsor you to go to this event." So okay, so that's that. And then finally, the program perceptions resource. This is actually a report that's going to come from the student survey when we ask them what they think about the program and their counselor. So so nothing to fill out here. That'll come from the survey. Okay, so that's that. And then the only other thing I want to mention on the process page is don't forget to submit these things. And then, when you've submitted them, make sure that you're reading the rubric items so that you've met all the rubric items before you submit them to us, because if you haven't, we'll just send them back to you and ask you to please redo. So, okay, that's it for this video on the self-studies, and thank you for watching, and thank you for participating in Redesigning School Counseling.